What makes for a great vacation? Depends on who you ask. Are you looking to get away or bring everyone together? Do you want to get outside and play or see a play at the plate? Fortunately, however you operate, I'm the destination you've been looking for. The name's Missouri, but you can call me Mo. And I have just one question. What's your MO? Come see me at visitmo.com.
Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.
Thanks for tuning into Comedy Album Book Club. This week we have an interview with Toronto-based comedian Olivia Stadler. She was on her very first episode, having only been doing comedy for about 2 months at that point. I had hoped to have her on again a while ago, just to check in, see where she was since her career started around the same time as the podcast did. This is our first opportunity, and we sit down and we talk about her favorite albums, her influences, and her comedy journey. Also, I have some really exciting news. The 14th annual Toronto Sketch Comedy Festival returns March 7th to the 17th, 2019, with over 75 comedy acts on 7 stages. We're happy to announce that Comedy Album Book Club has been confirmed to make its return to stage as part of the programming. We'll record the podcast live at the Theatre Incubator Centre on Saturday, March 9th at 5 p.m., and we will hopefully see you there. More news to follow with our guests and the album that we'll be covering, but I'm really excited. You can pick up tickets at torontosketchfest.com. They're available now, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. Enjoy the interview. Thanks for joining me. I'm here with Olivia Stadler, who was on our very first episode, which is like about a year and a half ago.
I didn't know that was the first one.
Yeah. And I just thought it'd be great to sit down and catch up, because when you were on that episode, you were new to comedy. You'd only been doing it like a couple of months, if I remember.
Probably like 2-3 months at that point.
Yeah. So I mean, we've been going for about a year and a half, and that means you've been going close to 2 years now. And then
something like that. I think summer is when I started.
Yeah.
So about a year and a half. Yeah.
Excellent. So to start, just the question that we ask everybody is...
I'm nervous.
No, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. It's just get an idea. But what your favorite albums were. And you mentioned Amy Schumer's set from the album, or then the special Women Who Kill, as well as Bill Burr's You People Are All the Same. So what makes those stand out for you?
I just picked 2 that got me really into comedy. I had a little bit of time last night to watch the Bill Burr one. I've watched the Amy Schumer one so many times, so I mostly remember it, but not quite if we're going to talk about it in detail. I think it's just that they got me really into comedy. Like, that's when I, the first time I saw stand-up that made me, keel over laughing, that just, I guess their senses of humor just resonate with me a lot. So yeah, just from that point forward is when I got really obsessed with comedy, and then those 2 stand out as 2 comics I really love still.
Well, and I think because I watched a lot of Amy Schumer's stuff. Over the years, I hadn't seen that particular special.
And did you go ahead and watch it?
Yeah, I watched it, and I also was listening to Bill Burr, and it's really those 2 at the top of their game in both of those, where it's just they're Amy's delivery is it's very dry and sort of sideways in a lot of ways, where she's
she's in character for sure.
Yeah, and she's pulling in concepts without sort of she's going at them from kind of a diagonal direction, which is where she, I think, her material thrives, is when
that's a great way to put it. Yeah, she's almost talking about she's getting to a subject that's like maybe like feminism or something like that, but then she comes at it sideways.
Yeah,
it's a good way to describe it. Just really repeating what you're saying.
It's just, and I appreciate that about her work. It's like she'll tackle these subjects that a lot of people avoid in a really sort of, you know, upfront way, but only after, like, you know, she's starting over here and it's like, and then sort of segues through, oh, you're a pretty person in the audience, and then like goes into that, or you know, talking about, you know, body image or something like that. And there's all these different ways. And now Bill Burr too, is like, I thought they're very different, whereas she's sort of like sliding from topic to topic. He's sort of like ballistic and head on in his delivery there, which I like what he does,
where he just kind of like starts with a really controversial statement, like it's okay to hit a woman, or what does he say? He's like, there's no reason to hit a woman, and he's just like, really, I can think of a few, and then everyone's like, oh my god, and then he kind of like defends himself, and it comes out that he's not actually a misogynist asshole. But he starts out with that statement to get everyone to be like, what the fuck, and then
like to get people engaged and draw them in, and then he's like, oh, okay, and it's sort of like that's what he like. I'm listening to that, especially when he was talking about fixing things and just losing your shit, and I don't know if it's like a, you know, an Irish guy thing, because like, you know, I'm of Irish descent, I'm of Irish descent, I do the same thing, like that bit where he's talking about IKEA furniture and then like having to buy new ones because he freaks out and smashes it up. I'm like,
I'll buy 5 and smash 4 if I want to.
And I have been there.
Like my Bill Burr impression, that was really spot on, wasn't it?
It's a pretty good impression.
It was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
It's a shame you only listen to the audio, because he does a lot of act outs in there. I think that's when he starts. I like that you said they're both at the top of their game there. I feel like that's both when they that's when they both kind of exploded. Like that's when they both.
I think coming out of that was Amy Schumer was doing her show around that period. So
right after that, I think.
Like that came right after that, and I think, and Bill Burr, you know, he's been around for a long time, but I think that was sort of like when he exploded into the public consciousness really seriously. So and they're, you can really, they're both interesting, and they're you know, having seen your set a couple of weeks, I guess last week or the week before, it's all blending together.
Matthew came to my show. It's called Literally Dead. It's at Comedy Bar first Saturday of every month.
It was a great show. Great show.
You liked it?
Yeah, I did. It was funny though. I was like, it's like all the Bumble swag. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But it's like it was an interesting audience. It was like, this is not the normal typical comedy audience, but that made it all the more fun because it was like a different reaction than you'd get, and it was a good energy and everything, and it was terrific. But but interestingly, I kind of feel you draw from both Bill Burr and Amy Schumer to a certain degree. I mean, it's your own voice, but you know, the way you sort of you have some, and we'll talk about this more, but you tackle topics in a way where it's like you start in one direction and then sort of ease into it. And it can tackle some dark stuff in a good, powerful way. I really enjoyed that, like when you're talking about being a dancer and stuff, and some of the implications of growing up in dance. And it's like, that's really, it's a sly way to get to where you were going.
That's funny because that was like that's not really a joke, that thing I was talking about being a dancer. I was like, okay, there's gonna be a lot of my dance friends in the audience. I have to like address them and like make a joke, so I kind of wrote that the day of to like kind of add it in there.
But it's great, and just knowing your room and playing to the audience. But it was good. It was a really solid material that I really enjoyed.
Thank you. I guess that makes sense that I would draw from those two. Those are two of my favorite comedians, and then Nikki Glaser is my other favorite. Actually, Perfect I really loved. I forgot about that album.
Okay,
have you seen that one?
No, I actually saw her not too long ago. Last time we were in New York, so that was in.
Did you watch her at the Cellar or something?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I saw her, and we also saw Mateo Lane, who I got like a man crush on.
It's great.
I'm on it. I follow his Instagram, and I got to be careful about checking Instagram on the bus because
he's constantly
naked. Constantly. Him and Nicole Byer in underpants I can get away with, but then he just had a bunch of shots lately where it's just him and all together
too.
Yeah,
so
it's
just straight up looks like you're looking at porn when you're on the subway.
Yeah, and it's very strategically crossed legs. So I mean, like, I have no problem with him posting that, but I'm like, it's like, that's not something that like you want to necessarily have out in public. public
For sure.
kind of thing. So it's like, oh, I'm looking at my comedians and there's his butt. Okay. But yeah, so I saw her and it was a really interesting show because that she's had a lot of life changes. So the kind of material she's doing now is very different than...
When was this?
Just this past summer.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
So yeah. And because I mean, I loved her show. Unsafe, I think it was
Unsafe?
called. Yeah.
Not Safe. Sorry.
Not Safe.
Not
yeah.
Safe.
So I loved her show and like there were bits on there that just had us in stitches. Like when she and I think it was Kyle Kinane would get together.
Directed the porn thing?
Yeah, just like
so funny.
Improv'd off the top of their head, porn dialogue, and the actors would
have to say it.
And it's just
sex.
like, that is hilarious. That
do you
is
ever listen to, sorry to keep cutting you off, I'm bad at this. Do you listen to her serious show?
No. I was listening to her podcast for a while.
I've listened to all of her podcasts. I've been a huge fan of her for like 5 years as like a human and a comic. And I'm mad at her right now. I have beef with her. Do you know Tom Takar?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, you know everyone. You're a huge comedy fan. That's crazy.
I know a bit.
She fired him.
Oh no.
They've been best friends for years. They were like a duo in that serious show.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I'm too like bi-coastal. I keep going back and forth from LA to New York, so it doesn't make sense. But he was always being Skyped in. I keep talking about this. My boyfriend's going to be laughing because I've been talking about this solid for 2 days. I'm very upset. But he always Skypes in and you can never tell when they're doing the show that he's even not there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But then she just announced that it's his last week and you could tell he was not happy about it. He was just like, yep. Sure. Like when she was just being like, it doesn't make sense. He's like, yeah, sure. Just super not happy about it. And I'm really not happy about it. Nikki's not being a good friend.
Well, I like looking at her material, it really does seem like she's in a place of flux right now.
Yeah.
Like
it's true. And she's like really on, I feel like she's about to explode.
Yeah. I mean, especially like I watched the Dancing with the Stars with her. And
she's
it's
so
like,
bad.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I love your comedy.
Oh, I love you, Nikki, but you're not listening. I was going to say, I apologized to her as if she would ever hear this.
But it's, and this is like, it was interesting watching, but that's sort of like that. Okay, there's going to be a lot more eyes on her now because she's exposed to a demographic that, didn't see her before. And it's curious. It'll be interesting to watch where her career goes from here and how her material is going to evolve. I've always enjoyed it, so it'll be interesting to see. So now, we started doing stand-up in 2017, and that's summer. Now, what's your journey been like? Like what's it been like the last, couple of years? Like going from like open mics and stuff to now producing a show.
I still do open mics primarily. I was very lucky when I started. So I started by doing the Second City class, which was very helpful in that it got me comfortable being on stage. And I had a few people to go out to open mics originally with. But then it quickly became apparent that most of those people weren't interested in, like, they wanted to go like once every 2 weeks as a group together and then get drinks after, like not actually hustle the way that you would if you really want to do comedy. But the first day that I'm like, I'm not waiting for these people anymore, I'm gonna just do it on my own. I met like my best friends now that night. And they're like amazing people, Patrick and Ezra. And then from there on, we just kind of like built our group. And like I ended up starting at the same time as a lot of other great people and comics, and a lot of female comics. I don't know if you know, like Allie Pierce, Hannah Lawrence, Angelica Scanura. Maybe you've seen the names.
Yes.
All three of them started within like the same 2, 3, 4, 6 months as me, let's say.
Yeah.
And then we all like immediately became really good friends. So I got very lucky with that. It's been fun. It's been hard in a lot of ways, but mostly just great. It feels good to finally be doing something that I've wanted to do for a while.
Yeah. Well, it's how has, like, because you've been doing it for a couple of years, so there's gonna have been some evolution there. Like, how's your being on stage changed? Like, how's your material changed, and how do you find it evolving as you've been going on?
I feel like I'm starting to learn how to be a little bit more likable on stage. Okay, well, one of my struggles when I write is, like, I always just go to the furthest thing in order to be funny. Like, if I'm writing, like, a joke about kids, the punchline is going to be pedophilia. If the joke is about my family, the punchline is going to be incest. Like it always just does that and I feel like that's what's always the easiest. So I'm trying to get away from that a little bit. But at this point, it's still like I'm still very new. I'm only a year and a half in. I feel like you don't really choose what you write. Like when people criticize new comics, it's weird because it's like I can. It took me so long to think of this one joke that I don't even like either, and I just have to say it because I have nothing else to say at this point.
It's like somebody learning the piano. They start with chopsticks. They're not going to start with Mozart's symphonies, and jokes are the same way.
Totally, but
you
people
find
don't
your
perceive
voice
it that way because everyone tells jokes. Like everyone plays a part in humor, and they don't. Like it's hard to.
Well, it's that myth of the stand, like the naturally funny person. Like there are those people, like 1 in a million, who get up and are just funny from the get go. But for the most part, like especially in stand up, where you're like up there flying solo. For the most part, you got to figure it out. You gotta learn the scales and figure out, okay, what am I trying to express here?
Yeah.
Now, when the set I saw, you did some pretty dark stuff there. Is that at all cathartic? Like just going to those places?
Not so much when I'm on stage. Honestly, when I'm on stage, I don't really think about the jokes that I'm doing. I think about the jokes that I'm doing the first 5-6 times that I do them. And then after that, I'm kind of indifferent to those jokes. And the thing that's fun about being on stage is like, if I perform well, if I riff something that's funny, if I do better with my timing, like the jokes, like that's all writing. Like I find out if they work after I perform them 5 times and they work all 5 times, then I'm like, that's a solid joke. I'm not worried about it anymore. I'm not even going to think about it when I'm on stage. So like, I don't really get any satisfaction out of that unless I maybe like riff like a tag onto it, and then I'm happy about that set. So if I feel best about a set like if I do something different that works. Cool. Because otherwise I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. I don't even remember what the question was. Did I answer that?
Yeah, no, that was
it.
Okay,
cool.
That was perfect. Now you were a dancer before you did comedy. Did you find that? I mean, it's a very different skill set, obviously, but there's still performance involved. And do you find any of that performance from being a dancer helped in like shape or inform your comedy at all?
Totally. I really think that it did. I don't know that it made me comfortable on stage because in between being a dancer, which is when you're 7 to 18, and then so the years of being 18 to 23 when I started comedy, I was like terrified of doing presentations. And what else did I have to do? Anytime I was on a stage, I was kind of like nervous. But as soon as I guess I was confident in the skill set that I was performing, that's when I feel like I kind of like knew how to utilize the performance skill. But I think what I'm realizing is that I always that was what I liked about dance. I hated being in the dance class. I only liked performing. So now with stand-up, I get to extend all of that because the practicing happens on stage while you're performing. So all of it's performance. And I guess I'm realizing that I've always have been a performer. It was just the wrong medium before. So I do think that definitely helped. And yeah, I feel like I'm just born for the stage. You know what I mean?
Excellent.
Just meant for it.
Yeah, I mean, you are up there commanding that audience and like thinking on the fly with that family in the front row kind of thing. That was an interesting twist on the night, where it's like it was one of the comics families,
so
right?
It wasn't a comic who was on the show. It was Hannah Lawrence. I mentioned her earlier. Yeah, she's a friend of mine. Her family just came out to the show. Her mom was beaming at me like she was my mom.
Oh, that's
and I
sweet.
Wish she was.
But it's just I have a similar situation that happened to me as an 18-year-old, where I went to a comedy club with my mother, which was a freaking mistake. Now the audience or the comics were much more gentle to them than they were to me and my mother. But it was really nice, and everybody was rolling with it. When I went, it was, oh God, I'm gonna give away my age. It was like 94, so arch grunge.
Year was born.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
I love doing that to people and just seeing their face like. Oh, no.
I'm at one with my being in middle age. I've made peace with it.
How do you do that? I'm really stressed about aging, and I'm 24.
I just stopped giving fucks.
Yeah.
You know, like you can stress about it and that's just going to make your life miserable, or you can just enjoy life. And I decided I'm just going to enjoy life. I'm not going to worry about it.
I would love to do that. But that's like, how do you just do that? You can just tell your brain like, hey, stop hating everyone that's younger than you and just enjoy your life.
I think for me is when I realized like there's a lot of that millennial hate, and I'm like, they're no different than I was.
Yeah.
Like everybody's like, oh, they're lazy or this or that. I'm like, no, they're not. They work hard. They get paid shit. And they're just as engaged or more engaged than their seniors. Yeah. You're just giving them shit because they're young. And I'm like, that happened to me. That's how it always
has been.
Yeah. Like, it's like every generation shits on the generation after them. Yeah. And like and I'm like, I don't have time for that. I like people. I like having fun. I like, silliness. Why am I going to stress about, if I'm getting gray hair or if all the people in the club are younger than me? I mean, like, I know my limitations. I'm not going to go.
Shouldn't go to clubs.
Yeah, I'm not
comedy clubs, not nightclubs.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I don't go to. No,
Sometimes I think about the fact that like when I was at Western when I was like 18, and there would be like a old guy just walking around. We'd be like, oh, like I don't want to be around him, but I didn't think about like, oh, he's a pedophile. Yeah, because like so many of us are underage.
Yeah, it's creepy, and it's like, and that's one of the things where it's like you gotta draw your lines. You gotta realize there's some things that you enjoyed in your 20s and in your teens, you just can't do anymore. You can't. It's just not the same world.
That's true. Like I'm jealous of like the idea of being 17 again, but anytime I interact with a 17-year-old, I'm like, I don't want to be 17 again.
No, I think back to my teens and I'm like, it was nice. My 20s, that was a lot more fun, but you couldn't pay me to go back there again. Just because, you got a world of experience, but also like all the crap of like your first heartbreak and the dating scene, like
the lack of freedom too is something I couldn't go back to.
Yeah.
Now I have freedom, but I have so much more insecurity, not like emotional insecurity or physical insecurity. I mean, like, just am I ever gonna have money? That kind of insecurity.
Yeah, and I mean, it balances out in time. It'll all be cool.
I'll chill.
Yeah. But yeah, so is my similar experience to that family was so it's 90s. I was like hardcore, ridiculously idiotic, like this goth grunge crossover. So I had like long greasy hair, scraggly beard, lots of flannel, but it was like dark purple and silver flannel with like Celtic knots on the back because I couldn't figure out what the fuck I was doing.
I can really see this.
It was a terrible fashion mistake. My mom was going through a divorce at the time, so she's like, you like comedy, you want to come out? And we went to the Yuck Yucks in Waterloo. And I don't remember a lot of the comics. It was funny, but I mean, like I always have this bad habit of sitting towards the front, and that can be dangerous, as you all know.
How do you make that mistake?
Well, at that time, that was my first time going to a comedy club. And then after that, I'm just like, I don't think. I'm like, I want to get a good view. And then
And then you realize
I just put myself in line. Like
I went to a TV show, they're going to talk to you.
Yeah, yeah. Like I went to a Moishe Kasher show, and like literally he made me the centerpiece of the show.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, I became part of the material. And I'm like, why did I do this? And it was nice. It wasn't mean, but it's like, this has happened before. I should know better by now.
That's a good thing that it's you that sits in the front, because the worst part is like when people who want the show to be about them sit in the front.
Yeah.
And then they make sure the show is about them.
Yeah. It's like, oh no. But yeah, so there was this woman who I kind of thought, oh, she's really pretty. I got a crush on her. Like this big sort of Amazonian goth woman who was doing comedy. And she was, talking about naming parts of her anatomy. So she then turns to me and goes, oh, so do you name your penis? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, oh, what's wrong, honey? Because she just did like an extended bit about how she hated performing for university kids because they were annoying. And she's like, oh, what's wrong? Are you here on a date? And I'm like, no. What, you here with your sister? No. Your aunt? No. What, your mother? And I'm like, yeah. So she then turns to my mom and is like, oh, don't worry, I'll be gentle. And then turns to me and like names my junk.
That's so like, embarrassing for a 17-year-old.
Yeah, I'm just like dying inside, and she's like, oh, My Little Pony, and like gets this huge laugh. And I'm like so embarrassed, but at the same time I'm like, it was a good laugh.
Yeah,
it's a solid joke. I appreciated the joke. So even at that point I'm like, I don't mind. I was like adjacent to funny, so but yeah, like going with a family, that's a bold move.
Oh my God. Yeah. Going to comedy with your family.
Yeah.
I went with my mom to Comic Strip Live in New York. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere else. There's like poachers outside of, what's it called? The Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
That like pull you to like some shitty show.
Yeah.
That it happens to a lot of people. It happened to my parents when they went to New York last month. And it happened to me and my mom when we were there.
Yeah,
fell for it again.
I have pity. Like every time I go, I will buy tickets from those guys because they're usually people who want to be on stage, and that's how they get on stage is by selling those tickets. Yeah. So I'm like, I never go, but
if
I'm
you're
like,
in New York, just like go to the real one.
Yeah, and there's so many. Like the Cellar.
And you're a real
and Caroline's
comedy fan. Like let those be sold to drunk idiots who are like, oh, someone told me to go here.
Yeah,
you know?
And that's the thing. That city is like just. There's so many options. Like, like even if you're like, oh, I can't go to this place because of such and such a reason, then there's like 6 other historical great places that have amazing people who will just sometimes show up and walk up on stage.
Totally.
Like 2 times ago, we were walking down the street because I had bought tickets to Caroline's, and it was like a weird night. It was like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and we just landed in New York. We dropped off our stuff. We took the train down from Harlem. And we're like walking through Times Square, and I'm like, that guy's got a lot of weed stuff on his clothes. He looks familiar. And we're walking like 3 steps behind Pete Davidson for like 4 blocks.
Cool.
And I'm like, I want to talk to him. And we're like, no, but we didn't. We respected
Was this pre-Ariana?
Oh yeah, this was his first year. So this is like, yeah.
Whoa, so cool. He's so young.
Oh, I know. He's a kid.
So good.
Yeah.
Do you get to watch him there?
Oh, no. He just finished. He had a week where he was doing like every night.
Can you imagine being that successful at like 19, 20?
It would blow my mind. It's like no wonder he's had so many struggles because like to move in those circles at that age. And Eddie Murphy was the same way. I mean, he was about the same age. And when he landed on this SNL, they were about the same age. And they both had the same kinds of struggles with substance abuse and I really respect what he's done with his platform and what he's done with his material, and he never works mean either. Like it
bothers me that people still find reasons to pick on him.
Yeah, I mean, they only find reasons to pick on him because he was dating Ariana Grande. I mean,
it's crazy that you like when a couple breaks apart, like you have to pick a side and hate the other one. You can't just be like, oh, that's a shame or whatever.
Yeah, and like even she's like, oh, I'm obviously not over this guy I was with before. It wouldn't be fair. Like it was a completely
even Ariana's like forgived him. People are mad at him for her, but she's like, no, we're good.
Yeah, it's a completely amicable breakup, and then people are like all over him, and I'm like, what? Yeah, can't you just like relationships end? Let it be kind of thing. So yeah, but it's like there's all sorts of places in the city, and like when we last went down when we went to the Comedy Cellar, we had dinner above, and I'm just like trying to look at the comedy table in the back and like see who's back there. I'm like, oh, is there anybody I got a comedy crush on? And it was like a bunch of Louis' friends, so I'm like, ugh. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna worry about it too much. So now you mentioned when you started up that like a bunch of people who you've sort of become tight with and a bunch of really strong comedians started out. So how do you find the Toronto comedy community? Like, is it a welcoming community or is like is there a lot of camaraderie between comics?
There's both. Like there's like a lot of hostility, but there's also a lot of camaraderie and there's a lot of great people. I was very lucky when I started, like I said, but then there's the example of like another female comic who started like a few years before me, and she didn't start at the same time as any other female comics. Got in with like a club that's like notoriously like a boys club, and then just like got like what's the word, like ex-nayed by like all the female comics and just had a hard time making friends.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like I think that there's good and bad. Yeah.
Now, sort of a bit of a tangent here. Now you're a younger comedian. Have you found like YouTube and social media impacting how you like build out your comedy and how you develop and work in the comedy world?
I don't know, because I'm still at such a new stage, but I don't know if I can even speak to this stuff. I do think that like Twitter helps me write jokes because of that like instant validation of like getting likes. So I'll just end up Oh no, the cat's here.
That's Caramel.
Hi, Caramel. Can I shut her out? I'm allergic.
Yeah, you can.
I love you. Aw, she's so cute. Yeah, like Twitter helps me write jokes and also be constantly writing jokes because I want to get likes, and I'm more drawn to that like rush of euphoria or whatever when you get the likes. I don't know if like the Facebook, the advertising helps, but honestly, Facebook is mostly just for bragging, and it feels bad, and I mostly don't do it. But once in a while, I'll have to remind myself, like, no, you have to post that like you did this or that you are doing shows so that people remember, because that's really the only way that you know what quote unquote level someone's at, is if they're posting like, oh, I got on this show or I did this. That's the only way you know, is if they post, because otherwise you forget about people.
Yeah, so many people just like, they just live on Facebook. That's where they get their news. They know what's going on. They know what shows are coming up, and
and then you know what shows you're not booked on, and it feels bad every time, even though you know you're not supposed to be booked on that, or that you don't deserve to be. So I just deleted the app off my phone. I'm going rogue for a bit. Let's see what happens.
It's one of those things where I try to moderate my usage. I use it too much, but at the same time it's like, okay, I'm going to use it between X hours and Y hours, and for specific purposes. Like, I'm going to go on and I'm going to catch up on like a particular comic or a particular subject or a particular person, and then I'm like, oh, I'm out, because it's just like, it's kind of gross and toxic there in a lot of ways. So
totally. I'm trying to think if I have any examples of, like, I feel like there's some comics who are good on Twitter that have gotten writing jobs out of it. And there's people on YouTube who make money out of that or gain some sort of accolade for that. But mostly I feel like stand-up is like such a purist environment about stand-up that even if you have some status from YouTube, people are like, no, you suck. Do open mics, write jokes.
Yeah, well,
because there are people, and people are like, well, no, we don't respect you still.
Yeah,
just because it's that.
I find it funny. Like, there's a lot of YouTube. I find is a really weird environment.
Oh yeah,
because you got all these people who are like,
quote unquote comedians.
Yeah, who've never done any of the work. Not even if like you don't necessarily have to be a stand-up, like sketch comedy. Like Lonely Island do some amazing videos, but they cut their chops doing sketch. You know, they learn, okay, what works and how's that going to translate to video. And you know, so many of us are like, I'm going to stream videos. Oh, now I'm like 30, I can't stream video games anymore. Oh, now I'm going to do comedy. And it's like, well, no, you yelling into the mic about some zombie jumping up at you does not translate to you being a comedian.
I can't watch so much of that stuff. Who's that one girl that did the Dear Fat People that calls herself a comedian? Oh God,
she's a Toronto.
Yeah, she's from Toronto.
She's from Toronto. I purposely avoid her. I can't remember. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she makes me really mad when I watch her content. She's also someone that I think Mark Breslin like wrote a post about her being like, please don't associate this woman with our comedy scene in Toronto. Because she did Humber apparently and was like, I'm too good for this. I'm going to be famous for my YouTube. I'm better than all of you guys. Yeah. Did like the Humber stage a few times. Like,
she's like, oh, well, I'm just, you know, I'm parodying. And it's like, you know, I'm doing a parody. Well, when there's nothing to communicate that, like, there's nothing indicating that you're trying to be funny. It's just coming across like you're saying horrible things about people.
I know.
And she's done like several videos where it's the same
and she'll just be
gag.
Like, you guys don't get it, it's comedy. It's like, I know what a setup and a punchline are though, and I don't see either of those. You're just saying like, oh, I'm a tubby walking to the garbage can. That's a really good impression example once again.
Not,
but you know what I mean?
Far from what she does. Yeah. And it's
just a lot of like quick cuts and then like different voices.
Yeah, it's like, that's not comedy, and that's
what's her name?
I can't remember. Here, I will edit the breakout.
Yeah, I need to know.
Canadian YouTube star encouraged. So this is her. Nicole Arbor.
Yes, Nicole Arbor. Nicole Arbor.
She's terrible. She's terrible, and
it kind of makes me. I'm like, should I just like work on my body and do that instead?
Well, I kind of was like, I dug into like where she was coming from with this, because I have a morbid fascination with YouTube culture and how it's, you know, how I mean, it's got a lot of potential for positive, like getting voices out there and getting material out there.
There are some really funny YouTubers. I think one's name is Alex Edelman. Do you know who he is?
No.
He's not like a stand-up or anything, but he makes YouTube videos that are like legit hilarious.
Yeah, and that's what's it's like, so there's an interesting new platform, but like then you got people like Nicole. So I was like, you know, she was a cheerleader for the Raptors before she started doing
something
comedy.
Like that,
and it's like yeah, you just can't just say you're a comedian and that miraculously makes what you're saying okay. And
it's the only job where you can do one open mic and then put it as your job on Facebook, and no one can really say it's not true.
And it's like that undermines the argument for everybody actually trying to work in comedy and be you know challenging with their material, because you've got this dumbass who's just saying dumbass stuff, and it sucks.
Luckily she didn't stay in Toronto for too long, so I feel like we've kind of like disowned her in a way.
She like and Bieber can go off and be gross together somewhere.
I love Justin Bieber.
Really?
I don't know, I like one song. I like
it's an age thing though. I will admit I probably don't like him mainly because he came out at a point where I'm like
that stage where he was like pissing in buckets and like punching people.
Yeah, I like, and I mean his family being like, while he's doing that, being ultra Christian at the same time. It's like, it's just this like, you can't have it both ways. Like, be the bad boy or be ultra Christian, but don't like make people's lives hell and go to brothels in Central America and then like go to church with your mom and like get baptized in your bathtub. You know,
I know, it's really weird.
He's a conundrum. He seems to have settled down though. Like, to his
him
credit.
and Haley are both like, they love God together. That's what keeps them together.
Yeah. So I mean, like, hey,
so whatever,
more power to them.
Sure.
Yeah. If he's happy and he's not pissing in people's mop buckets in restaurants, then great, great. I guess about the last couple of years have been pretty tempestuous within comedy.
I have no idea what that word means.
It's been pretty crazy. It's been pretty crazy. Again? Tempestuous.
Yeah.
So it's like a storm. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy in comedy. It's like you've had a lot of people saying dumbass stuff and getting called to the mat for bad behavior. But it also feels like from the outside, or from like, 1 foot in the door, it feels like there's been some good change coming out of that too. So are you seeing any change from when you started a couple of years ago to when you started to now?
I feel like the changes were starting to happen when I started comedy, and then have just accelerated since. As a comic, I first of all, I appreciate that we're like not letting people say certain things anymore, but I don't know, it is hard as a new comic because it's hard to come up with anything to say at all. So when people are like being like, you can't say certain things at this like beginner stage, like it's like we're all just like throwing shit at the wall, and like there's like I don't know, like I feel like I could be saying, okay, like say Bill Burr's premise that like whatever it was, I forget that. There's never a reason to hit a woman. Say a comic who is really not funny had that premise. Yeah, they might be like, just oh my god, I forget the word. What's the word I want for ex-nade? Just like I remember having really inarticulate today. Just blacklisted from the community. That would be enough. But just because they're not funny, you know what I mean? Yeah, because they can't bring that premise back to where they have a noble intent when they throw that out there as the start, but they can't get it back to that. You don't hit it every single time, even if you are good. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of the problem with people like bringing their cell phones in and recording stuff and throwing it online. In some cases you're catching out bad people saying bad stuff, but in other cases you're like, especially in like open mics and stuff like that, it's like it's a comic trying to figure shit out. To figure it out. Yeah. Well, you're trying to figure it out at any stage, but especially when you're really new, it's really hard. Yeah. Yeah. Now you recently started producing Literally Dead at the Comedy Bar. Yeah. So that was sponsored by Bumble, with the proceeds going to Courtney Gilmore's Dream Leg. Yes. Which was awesome. So how did that happen? Like, what sort of brought that all together? Oh, I've been wanting to produce a show for a long time, just for stage time, money, just getting an opportunity to like put my favorite comics on stage. and having an opportunity to like have my friends see them, etc., etc. So I had been just asking Gary. Gary's amazing. Like you can, if you're like a comic that is active in the scene, you just message him, say, this is who I am. Can I have like a few trial runs? And then from there, he'll like offer you a spot. And he offered me like a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday. And I was like, I want to hold out for a weekend spot. And then I just held out for a weekend spot.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was literally that simple.
And how did Bumble get involved?
Oh, I just have a friend that works with them.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it's an interesting fit, because I mean, what's funnier than dating?
Yeah. And it was great that I had people like Jarrett and Pat Bergeron and Kate Barron who all are so good at riffing and have material relevant to that.
Yeah.
That they were able to key into that a little bit.
It all played into the theme of, this dating
I didn't even
app
really
company.
know that there was going to be like that, like Bumble was going to be that engaged
Yeah.
like that you could see so much, but I thought they were just going to be on the poster and then show up and take some pictures.
Yeah, like crazy straws, and
Crazy
hats
straws,
and like all
and
sorts
on
of
the
stuff.
stage. Yeah,
like the Bumble, they were sort of honeycomb shaped posters things leaning up. It was interesting. It made for some interesting material. So that was great. Now, so how is it different producing than performing? Like what are your responsibilities on top of doing
it's
doing a set?
stressful. Promoting is so hard. I really wish I took some marketing courses in university. I can't calm down about anything because like when you have both on the table, it's very stressful. It feels good though. It feels good to like have put the show together, and if it like turns out well, like I've produced 3 shows now and they've all been sold out and all been like a huge success with comics that I love. So far so good. It's like a lot of like diarrhea leading up the week until like that kind of thing. You're gonna probably have to edit that out.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process. Diarrhea. It is. Yeah.
Now, is it going to be the same host every time?
No, I'm going to try hosting. I was just nervous, and that's going to be probably the stressful part for me.
Yeah.
Is I'm not really used to hosting, and hosting is such a different skill. I'm sure any of the people listening probably know a lot about comedy, but having to like pay attention to the show, kind of like comment on what was just said, keep the energy of the room up, do like the cold open of the show, like when the room's not hot yet, get the energy up. But it's such a useful skill to have, hosting. I was just not confident enough when it first started up. I'm going to starting February 2nd, I'm going to be hosting.
Excellent.
Unless I don't feel like it, in which case I'll get someone else to.
Well, and because you're producing, you can choose.
Exactly. And I really like having all that power.
Yeah.
It's really nice to, and like sometimes I'm on a show where I feel like the lineup is like, not a good pattern for like getting energy, whatever, you know what I mean? You want to start kind of strong and really strong, have the whole thing can be strong, but you know what I mean? So it's nice that I get to choose, like make all those decisions, because often when I'm on shows, I leave being like, oh, it would have been so good if they just like asked the audience members that were sitting at the back to move to the front.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that. Because sometimes there's like a show where there's like 20 people, but they're all spread out.
Yeah.
And instead of like being like everyone sit at the front, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and there's some ebb and flow too with setting a lineup too. You being able to figure out, okay, this person is sort of like a down tempo,
we don't want to have 2 of those
kind
in a row,
of thing.
you
don't want to like stretch them out, pace them out, kind of thing. So yeah, awesome. Now, do you have a favorite venue or a particular night that you really enjoy performing at?
I love Comedy Bar. I love performing on that cab space stage. Everything about it is perfect, except for the fact that the door is so loud when it opens. Saturday nights are great. I like Comedy Bar because like outside of the cab space, like I like hanging out there too. But honestly, I'm pretty happy in comedy right now. I love a lot of it. I love the Corner is another stage that I really love to perform on because it's such a tight space. Like low ceilings. I really like that. Yeah.
I don't know. There's
what are other spaces?
There's a place that I have to go. There's there's two places. So there's one that's actually around the corner that's a barbecue place. I'm like, they have comedy on Wednesdays, and I'm like, what? That's a weird combination. I'm like kind of curious what comedy with barbecue would be like. But there's one place that I've been meaning to check out. It used to be
the Burdock. Have you been to the Burdock?
No.
The Burdock's another great space for comedy. I'm trying to think of other ones.
Well, there's one that used to be blind guitar guy, Canadian. I can't remember. He was in Roadhouse, but it's on like Queen, like
the Rivoli. I love the Rivoli
it's
too.
A little bit over from
the
Rivoli.
I was just talking about myself. Yeah, I'm not.
Rivoli is like historic. I saw Kevin McDonald there.
Cool. I think Robin Williams or maybe he's
performed there.
Okay, cool.
It's one of those places that it was like the place to perform for a long time. It's a hard room though. It's historically and notoriously hard.
Yeah. But when I opened for Marina Franklin there, it was such a comedy audience.
Yeah.
And it was such a group, like that's the best I've ever done there. And it was on an important night, so that felt really good.
Cool.
But it was very full, having said that, because it takes a lot of people to fill that room.
Yeah, it's a big space. Big space. And then like, the kids in the hall getting their start there. So I mean, like, I was like, this is so awesome. But yeah, there's a place just down the street. It used to be called Death in the Underground, goth club that I went to back in like the 90s, and now it's like under downstairs, like by a pizza. It's like attached to a pizza. But like, and it's like it's a comedy place. I'm like,
is it the Underground?
Yeah, I think
like
so.
The weed venue. Because I forgot to say that is actually my favorite place to perform. Probably above all of them.
I'm curious about that place because it used to be like a grungy goth bar in the 90s. And
it's a weed lounge now. It's actually... I don't know what I'm allowed to say on here, but you're not allowed to smoke weed there anymore.
Yeah, whatever. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I think the weed smoking there is over now.
Oh, okay.
It's really sad. So I don't know what's happening from here. But that is... Puff Mama's amazing. Like Joey, her name's Joanne Baker, but she goes by Puff Mama. Like that's her registered business name.
Hey.
And yeah, she's amazing. Like she's great because she gives stage time to like new comics, and it's like
that's terrific.
It can be such a good room when it's like full. That is probably my favorite place to perform, and I will miss it. But hopefully, it keeps going. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So it's so like the pot laws make it
exactly. Now that the pot laws, I think when it was like gray area, they kind of just ignored it, turned a blind eye. Like / when it was illegal, they were just like whatever.
So it's weird that now that it's illegal, they can't smoke there.
I know, it's crazy. I think it's because like you're just not allowed to have smoking indoors.
Yeah,
I think that's like a Canadian law.
Probably the same rules as cigarettes. So they're just applying that across the board.
But it's dumb.
It's if you're going to a place that's literally like a pot joint, joint, bad pun, but a pot place.
A pot joint, yeah.
It's like. You know what you're getting. It's not like, like people smoking in the bovine or something like that. This is going in. You're going to a place with a bunch of hookahs, a bunch of people smoking joints and stuff.
Totally.
You're gonna get secondhand pot smoke. I mean, I don't know. My office where we are. I can kind of get hotboxed by the neighbors sometimes. It's pretty bad. I'm like, I don't smoke. It's just not my bag. Nothing against it. Just nothing for me. There's days when I'll like be down here doing something and I'm like, why am I'm really tired. Hungry and tired and feeling really dizzy, but okay. And I'm like, oh,
in a good way.
Yeah. They're hotboxing me again. Great. So last question for you. So 2 questions. So who are some of the other, like you mentioned a few people starting out when you started out. Who are some of the people in Toronto and that you feel people should look out for?
Oh, just like people like looking out for
coming out or like, big names, new names, people you've seen.
I always forget people when I do these lists, but my favorite comics in the city are Sandra Battellini and Chris Locke. Cool. Oh my God, they're both so fucking good. If you see them performing somewhere, go watch. Excellent.
So I've asked this of a few people, and that's kind of a question, like the first question. I'm trying to make this my last question. So I've had a few people on where they've talked about the weirdest places that they performed. So, Courtney Gilmore did a nudist speech. Shanti Marostica did a bachelorette party. So have you had, I mean, you're new, you're a couple years in, have you had any crazy or weird performance experiences yet?
For sure. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. The worst one I've ever had was, and this isn't like the craziest picture, but I had to perform in like a restaurant. First of all, I had to travel an hour and 40 minutes for this place.
Ouch.
For no money. It was like a small town equivalent of a Swiss chalet, which I know they have Swiss chalets in small towns, but picture smaller and tighter. It's just like one big square, just people eating dinner. And then they just set up a microphone in the middle of the restaurant. Nobody wanted this to be happening, but everyone in there could hear. There was at least like 50 people that were hearing it, but just pretending it wasn't happening.
They're there for their rotisserie chicken and soggy fries. They don't want comedy.
Oh, and this is actually reminds me of something that I improved on. Like, I used to have material where I like disparaged what I look like and my body and stuff like that, and it didn't really do well. Like, it rang true to me, but it didn't ring true to the audience, because they're like, you're like a young, semi-attractive woman, like you can't talk like this when your audience is like, especially that night when it was all like suburban people in their 40s 50s, and I was like, oh, this is my clean material, because I want to do clean material for these people, but it was like so unappealing to them. And that night after that, I just threw out all of that material. But yeah,
that's gotta be a challenge.
it was so bad. And I was supposed to do 15 minutes too, and that was like the first time I've gotten the light early. And I was like, I was bombing so hard, but it was like there was no audience.
Yeah, they're there to eat chicken.
They're there to eat chicken. And then another time I remember it was this weed lounge in like Brantford or Brampton, and my friend Patrick was on stage, and then a guy just got on stage while he was on stage, and I think Patrick had just said something inflammatory, so the guy that got on stage, it looked like he was trying to fight him, like he was mad.
Okay.
And then Patrick was just like kind of caught off guard, because we were both probably like 6 months in at this point, and then the guy, I think Patrick had said something about his own private parts. He had made a dick joke, and then that guy got on stage and pulled out his dick on the stage. And then what happened? Okay, I'm really fucking up the story. And then what happened is like Patrick's like, whoa, like put that away. And then he got offended, the dick out guy. So then he started trying to fight Patrick with his dick out. Oh yeah. Yeah, and then Patrick like said they got him out. Like the security or whatever, the bartenders, not a bartender, it wasn't a bar, a weed lounge. They just got him and they like threw him out. And then Patrick like said something funny, dispelled it. But it was a very weird vibe in the room, because we're like, is this like sexual assault, and like to whom? Because there's a lot of people and like a only woman audience kind of thing. It was weird. Yeah. And then he got off the stage, and then the host just brought me up to this weird energy in the room.
Like that's the job of the host at that point, is to like try to get it back to a neutral point.
Yeah, or end the show. I don't know. Yeah. No, probably just like dispel it and then bring me up. But he just brought me right up. Luckily, I had some riff like locked and loaded to like say about it, and it was funny. Thank God. And then I was doing okay, and then he not just walked but sprinted back inside. And then everyone just jumped on him, and then I just ran off stage.
Wow.
And they did this for no money. I have a lot of anecdotes that are similar to this. I had one guy. Okay, sorry. I know I'm telling a lot.
Hey, no.
This was probably like my second or third open mic, and I went up. And then after I went up, this guy came up to me and he was just like, what's your name? And I thought he was like, oh my God, like maybe this guy's going to book me. Because like I didn't know really anything. I was like, cool. So I like told him my name. And then as soon as he asked me, he went back into the front row and like moved a table and the couch and just opened his legs and started stretching. And I was like, oh, I just told a crazy person my name. Yeah. And then he was on next. And then he went on stage and then he went, oh, I'm Olivia. I like shopping and going to the mall and pink. Oh, I'm Olivia. I can call. And you just did that for 5 minutes.
What a dick.
He was crazy.
Yeah, like that's not normal, not right in the head.
No, there's something wrong with that guy.
Yeah.
But I was just very confused because I'm like, I don't know if this is happen at open mics or because that was like one of my first impressions of the scene.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. I don't know if you Patton Oswalt does a bit in his first album or second album. It's his first album. Where he talks about Dr. Pepper, who's at, I think, Yuck Yucks in Toronto. And this guy, it was like an open mic kind of situation, and this crazy guy just got on and did like 15 minutes of drugged out, heroin-addled like comedy. But he's like, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So I mean, that's, I guess, the risk reward of an open mic, in that you might see something amazing, and then you'll get like people with, you know, mental problems.
I always wonder, like, because most of the time open mics don't have audience members, it's just other comedians.
Yeah.
But when we do, I always wonder about those people, like if they just go home just like traumatized, they're all in this like I know what you did last summer kind of like conversation where they never forget about the night that they watched an open mic.
That night that person was working out that new material.
No, that night that guy sexually assaulted a woman on stage. That happened to me once too.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It was at... Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. Can you bleep that out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks. I was at a show, and actually, I don't know why I can't say that, but who cares? Anyways, they do this thing where if you're bombing, they just yell out like, okay, improv, and then they throw someone else on stage with you, and then you have to do an improv scene, and we're stand-ups, and it's like very bad improv, but it's a show designed to bomb. And then the first thing he did was he was like grabbing my arm, and then he just put his head in my crotch.
Oh, Lord.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
And then I just left. And I never went back.
Yeah. I started taking improv at Second City recently.
Yeah,
which,
how's that?
It's great. It's amazing. That's
awesome.
It's weirdly like meditation. I or yoga or something. Because I go stressed, I leave an hour later, and I'm like, oh,
and you just kind of like let your thoughts be what they are.
I've been yes-anding everything. I've been in the moment, but you know, one of the rules is you never touch. Yeah, it's like,
but the new people, they don't know that.
They don't know that, and apparently this creep didn't know that either. So it's like, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Okay, well, so where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter. It's at Liv Stadler, LIVSTADLER, and on Instagram at Ostads, OSTADZ.
Excellent.
Oh, and like Literally Dead on Facebook, and come out to those shows for Saturday of every month.
Yeah, I was at the first one and it was amazing. So I will vouch for that. I'm looking forward to the next one. So,
awesome.
Excellent. All right.
We'll be doing all the same material.
Hey, then you get to know it better.
Yeah, exactly.
So, excellent. Well, thank you for coming back and checking in and
thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
My pleasure. Excellent. Cool. Thank you.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, excursions, and more in one place. There are over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from, so you can find something for everyone. And Viator offers free cancellation and 24/7 customer support for worry-free travel. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Swimsuit? Check. Sunscreen? Check. Phone charger? Check. Don't forget to pack the 5-Hour Energy. It fits great in a pocket or carry-on, and the alert feeling will help you arrive ready for anything. Now get 20% off when you use code 5HETRAVEL at 5hourenergy.com. Expires April 30th. One-time use only. Not valid with other discounts. Remember, visit 5hourenergy.com and use code 5HETRAVEL to save 20%.